The Joe Hippensteel Method.
Hey, and welcome to the show, everybody. I'm your host, Jack Canfield, and today my guest is Joe Hippensteel, who is a master physiokinesiologist. He works with the Navy SEALs and professional athletes, teaching them the most advanced training methods in the world. And he teaches people how to eliminate pain and injury and perform beyond their genetic limitations, which we'll find out about because he did it in his own life and can teach you how to do it as well. He also gives seminars around the world to athletes and private clients who he describes as non-athletes from all walks of life. And he's the author of the forthcoming book. So welcome to the show, Joe.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you for having me.
Now, let's start by talking about you were a young athlete and you decided to train for what most people consider the most difficult event in the Olympics. And talk about how you did that.
Well, when I was young, I had the opportunity to be an athlete. Our parents gave us that opportunity, and we took advantage of it. I played 3 different sports, football, basketball, and track. And I was not an outstanding athlete, but I was kind of a good all-around athlete. But my size limitations, and I'm 5'8", 155 pounds in high school, so it didn't really ring that it was going to be I was going to be an NFL or an NBA professional athlete. So I pursued athletics just because I loved them. I played football my first 2 years in college at a small school, and also track and field. And then I decided I have to get serious. I've always wanted to do something like the all-around, like the decathlon. So I transferred to a school in California, Fresno State. And that's where my career took off. And I ended up doing quite well there. It's a Division I school. So I went from a Division III to a Division I school. And I ended up getting All-American, which is top 8 Americans. So I did well. I was the first guy on the field every day. I was the last guy to leave. So I was constantly in training. It was my love. It was my dream. So because I did fairly well at that level, I wanted to pursue the Olympics. It's something that I had always wanted to do. And my pursuit of the Olympics, without having the size, the speed, the power to do all 10 events in track and field, I definitely had genetic limitations. I'm competing against guys who are 6'3", I'm 5'8", so I have to high jump against them, I have to throw the shot put against them, et cetera, et cetera. And I just didn't have the advantages, so I had to try and figure out how am I going to compete against these bigger guys when I don't have the talent or genetics to do that. And that's what led me to some major, major discoveries, Jack.
So let's talk about those discoveries. What did you discover? I know you were trained for, I think, 20 years. And you've created this groundbreaking training that you now have. What did you discover?
Because of my size, again, I trained very intensely. I put in 10 hours a day of training. I would do 3 or 4 sessions a day, several hours each. I would travel to different universities during my break to see other coaches, listen to a lot of different coaches, tried to learn what I could in each of the different events. And over my career, I had over 40 coaches. I had 10 events. Weightlifting, additional running. And so I still wasn't achieving the level that I needed to, again, because of my lack of genetic potential. I mean, you're only so fast and you can only jump so high unless somehow you can transform that. So I had these different theories that I used that I wanted to try and incorporate. And I'll give you an example. I wanted to be able to possibly shed 40 pounds before a track meet. Then I'd feel like I was high jumping on the moon. But that's not possible. So I thought, well, maybe if I wear a 40-pound vest and wear it all day long for everything I do, except for a couple events like high jump or pole vault, I literally could get used to weighing 200 pounds. Then literally before a track meet, I could take off the weighted vest and I'd be 40 pounds lighter. So I felt like I was running on the moon or jumping on the moon, and it felt awesome. The lessons I learned from some of those things, some of the theories that I did from uphill training, from downhill training, put me a little bit closer to those bigger guys because they weren't able to do what I was able to do. So that intensity and the number of years that I trained produced a lot of injuries. That's where it all started, where I had to learn in order to keep going. I had to overcome those injuries. I had so many pulled muscles. I had torn cartilage. I had shin splints, plantar fasciitis, migraine headaches, torn rotator cuff, torn labrums, bulging discs, herniated discs. I had literally 100 injuries, and I never wanted to get drugs or injections or surgery. So I had to figure out, how am I going to do this? And the more I trained, I just kept trying to figure it out. So what I found eventually, here's the secret. You have to have a certain level of flexibility to balance the strength. If your strength goes up and your flexibility doesn't keep with it, you're going to be injured. Too much weight on your back doing squats is going to make your low back curve too much. If you have enough flexibility in the low back, you can handle more weight. So there's things that I learned, and I'll give you two big examples because this kind of led to all the secrets. When I supposedly tore my hamstring before one of the Olympic trials, coach said, yep, it's torn. Sorry, you can't compete. The doctor said, yes, it's torn. The chiropractor said, yes, it's torn. The therapist said, yes, it's torn. And I'm like, okay, I got 6 weeks left. So I'm in the weight room doing hamstring curls to try and strengthen it, and it felt worse. So at night, it would hurt so much over that period of time that I would start massaging it, and I'd massage deeper and deeper, almost where I was pressing on it like a trigger point, and it would start melting down. Then my flexibility would increase. When I eventually got my nose to touch my knee, it was gone. And I thought, wait a second, if it was a torn muscle, this isn't going to happen. So what I found was, I started calling it muscle lock. I can unlock those muscles when I get to certain ranges of motion. Another one was when I had, from throwing the shot put, discus, and javelin all the time, I had so much pain in my shoulder. It got to the point where now it's happening 24 hours a day. I couldn't get rid of the pain. I tried strengthening. I tried all the therapies. I tried acupuncture, chiropractic, physical therapy, and it just didn't do it for me. One day I'm in the room, continuing to experiment in the weight room, and I put my hand behind me because it just felt like I was stretching something. And the higher I would go, when I got to 120 degrees, the pain was gone. And I thought, well, I have a torn rotator cuff and a torn labrum, but the pain is gone now. Muscle lock, the front of the shoulder, the bicep tendons. So what I started realizing was if I reach these neutral points for all this different stretching for different parts of the body, I can neutralize virtually any pain. And when people are told by their doctors, oh, they're just aging and they have tennis elbow and knee problems and bulging discs and migraine headaches, that it's just part of aging, what I found was it's all tension. That's the common denominator. And when you eliminate the tension by hitting our 24 ranges of motion, all the pain is gone. It's like being 17 again. It's the fountain of youth. Pretty miraculous.
Okay, so you mentioned in your title of your book, flexibility to a standard. Talk about that in relation to what you just told us.
Yeah, what I found was stretching is kind of a general category. And a lot of times I get people that tell me, well, I'm too lazy to stretch or I'm not disciplined. It's because they don't know what to do. There's so many different techniques out there and so many different styles. And you can go to yoga, you can go to Pilates, you can try all these different stretching routines where people promise you, oh, do 5 minutes of this in the morning and you'll be fine. Well, that's not really how it works. What I found was you have to put in a certain amount of hours to reach a standard. It has to be step by step. You have to hold for a certain period of time. You have to have a rest period in between stretches. You have to do multiple repetitions. You have to do, for example, a physical therapist has one main test for lumbar flexion. If you have a low back issue, that it's called the sit and reach test, or you stand and reach for your toes. For me, that's only one level of lumbar flexion. I have 4 levels. If you can sit with your legs crossed and lean forward, put your head on the ground, that's the first level. If you can't, you have to start there. You can't try and reach for your toes. So step by step, in a planned progression with exact standards, like getting your arms up behind you to 120 degrees, being able to put your nose on your knee if you're an elite athlete. Obviously, an elderly person doesn't have to go that far, but they can get rid of most of the medical labels like arthritis, bursitis, tendonitis, bulging discs, migraine headaches, tennis elbow, restless leg syndrome. All these are just different examples of tension in the body. And the medical world and the athletic world haven't really figured that out yet. So they don't encourage as much stretching. We have an exact system of how we do it. And what we say is, if you have a deficiency in our ranges, you have a dysfunction. If you have a dysfunction, you have pain or injury. Get rid of the deficiency, get rid of the pain and injury. So that's how the system works. And it's really step-by-step what we teach. On my website, you can buy videos. We can do one-on-one sessions, or you can come to a seminar or certification. And we teach you how to get rid of these aches and pains, of aging, and literally go back to the fountain of youth and be 17 years old again. People think I'm kidding when I say that. I'm not. I have hundreds of people that write to me and say, this you weren't kidding. I feel 17 again. Nothing hurts.